everybody. This is your specialist team from Classic Beverage Company coming to you with our weekly extra special happy hour. Thank you for tuning in. We do have a special guest today who I will kick it over to introduce the theme. We've got Fajohn on, who's one of our district managers and a sage slash badass in the business. So we're psyched to have him on, and he came up with today's theme. So I'll go ahead and have him introduce it.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. It's quite an experience to be part of this. So cheers to you. Yeah, you know, it's spring. It's just past Mother's Day weekend, and like so many other people, found myself under the sun in the backyard gardening, putting in my tomatoes and chilies and herbs and things. And you know, I was just struck by the whole concept of gardening and what it means to us and our portfolio, really across all the tiers. And it's easy to see how when you're talking about wine, when you're talking about honest spirits and beers, that these are essentially products that begin in the field in so many ways, and they're farmed. And you know, right now it's such a crazy time that, you know, I think the way selection's going, the way people are shopping, you're not able to always peruse the shelf and work closely with your local, you know, wine shops to kind of really go through a selection. And there's some wines that are kind of becoming invisible. And to me, they're some of the most exciting wines. They're the wines that are made in the vineyard. And they're the beers that are made, honestly. They're the spirits that are made with a real effort for integrity and expression. So we just wanted to devote some products, a couple minutes to go through some things to sort of showcase exactly that. Wines that are made by people, wines that are made, or products that are made in the vineyard, and products that tie back to really the fields, the plants that they come from. So yeah, that's really the theme, and it goes a lot of ways. So as far as what I was thinking, I chose a wine, and I'll see if I can get this here. This is a wine from Terra. It's the Lageder Lowengang Chardonnay. This happens to be vintage 2016. This is a pretty iconic wine. We're in Italy. We're quite far north in Italy. We're in Alto Adige, so we're close to Austria, Switzerland, at the foot of the Alps in the Dolomites. So kind of a high altitude thing going on here in the province of Bassano. This is a Chardonnay that comes from a vineyard that the family purchased in the 30s. But this particular Chardonnay really became a noteworthy wine, kind of helped put this property and even this region on the map as early as the 1980s. The vineyard itself, you'll find Cabernet, you'll find Carmenere, you'll find Chardonnay. 3,000 feet, 1,000 feet, 800 feet. The vineyard range of elevation is varied, and it's really divided into plots. The Chardonnay is about 1,000 feet. It's on the foot of the talus of the slope, so you have quite a bit of sand, but a lot of limestone and granite here. This family is really, really passionate about biodynamic farming, so this is a wine that's made in the vineyard to the utmost degree. The wine is naturally fermented with ambient yeast. It's aged for 18 months, 11 on the lees, after a barrel fermentation, but sometimes mallow, but it's typically a larger, more neutral style of oak. The wine's beautiful, it's elegant, it's fresh, it's like a spring day. So when I was kind of going through a few ideas of what I get into varietal expression, what I get into farming practices, I really wanted something that kind of encompassed spring and encompassed a property that's really about ethical green practices in the vineyard. So here we go. Lowengang Chardonnay. How's that?
That's lovely.
Hell yeah.
All right.
I'm jelly. I love that wine.
The wine is great. And I got a whole bottle here. Well, Alisha and I have a whole bottle here. We'll figure out what to do with it.
I'll take a walk. I'll meet you in about an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Hit me back in an hour. I don't know who wants to go next, but I'm gonna throw it to, here, I'll show you the last, to Brian.
Throw it.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
You got it.
So with the theme this week, I kind of pondered on it. We're big green thumbs and gardeners ourselves, and we're packing at the moment. We're actually moving this weekend into our new home, but I decided to surround myself with some house plants, some of Amber's babies. This is Dr. Zhivago, our flamingo.
Nice.
And when I think about sort of gardening and an agricultural perspective in spirits, I think it's something that's really overlooked in the eyes of a lot of consumers, because spirits are spirits, right? We don't hear bourbon and think about corn farmers. We don't hear cognac and think about grapes growing on the vine in cognac, right? So I made a Negroni, a really fresh, bright cocktail. It's really wonderful when you're outside working hard over your raised beds or your acres of farmland, whichever. This is just a regular Negroni. My favorite for gardening is Fajohn, where you actually do like a baby Negroni and then you top it with some Prosecco. That's pretty jammin'. So in the Negroni, I have Rieger gin out of Kansas City. They use a lot of very reputable botanical producers from around the world. So this isn't what we call like a compound gin. It's not just flavors and alcohol. It's macerated and redistilled. Then from Mexico, as you all know, I love that place. We have Granada-Vallet, which is it's a pomegranate liqueur, but it's an Aperitivo. So it's all real ingredients. You know, it has the cochineal beetle for color. It's really wonderful and got a really hard edge to it. It's not apologizing for the category, as I always say. And then we have a really beautiful grappa from Jacapo Poli in Bassano di Grappa in North Italy. Again, maceration. No shortcuts. Everything is fresh and present. It doesn't taste like it's stitched together in some Frankenstein. Each of these components is very well composed. And when you compose a great Negroni with it, it's almost like greater than the sum of even those parts. It's really beautiful. So with that, cheers. I got my tiny glass so that I look like a giant. It's great.
Good.
Hell yeah. Anyway, we'll kick it to Alisha, see what she's sipping on today.
Hi, y'all. I'm sipping on some hard seltzers, which, as defined by the government, is classified as a beer, even though there's not actually any grain in the product. So yeah, that falls into my category, and I chose these seltzers because when I was thinking gardening, which I love to do. I don't do it super often, but I have a lot of plants and I love growing like stuff. I love cooking with fresh herbs, so just to have them in your backyard is really awesome. I thought that also when gardening, you just want something like super light and bright and refreshing, and that's kind of why I went this direction. And hard seltzers are huge right now, and I just kind of wanted to shine a little light on these highball seltzers for a few reasons. So these are made by Peak Brewing in Maine, which I talked about a couple weeks ago for our Earth Day theme. So they make these highball seltzers, which means that they're 100% USDA certified organic. And Peak Brewing works really, really closely with the farmers that they use to grow hops and grain and all the fruit that goes in their beers and their seltzers. And yeah, they're just, they're a really cool company, and they really, really care about the land that they're farming. They have great relationships with their tiny little family farmers that they're sourcing all their ingredients from. So that's kind of why I wanted to highlight this. So these are actually made with 100% organic sugar. It's fermented all the way down to 0 Plato. So there's actually 0 grams of sugar in the final product. And I poured them in these kind of funny wine glasses just because I really wanted to highlight the color of them. And that color is because they use real fruit, which a lot of hard seltzers in the market are flavored with fake fruit and fake sugars, and they just taste really gross. And I'm not a huge hard seltzer fan myself, but I love these because they're dry and they taste like real fruit. And I feel like a lot of people are drinking hard seltzers right now because they think that they're better for them than like beer or wine or whatever else that has more sugar and, you know, more like fatty ingredients and carbs and stuff. But the reality is that a lot of the bigger, more mainstream brands are using all those like fake sugars and fake fruit flavors and stuff, and that stuff's not good to put in your body. So these are actually these are actually like a semi-healthy version of what I think hard seltzer should be and what people think that it is. So it's just a really cool product, and I wanted to highlight them. And when I'm gardening, I want something super fruity and light and refreshing, and this is where my head went. So if you haven't had them, definitely try them. Yeah, and then they're also they have 3 flavors of these. I only have 2 with me right now. The purple one is blackberry lime, and the turquoise one is a grapefruit hibiscus. And then they have a third flavor, which is lemon elderflower. I just don't have it with me, so.
Sounds super tasty. Actually, I've been real drunk on those hard seltzers. They're so tasty. At my engagement party, we did on a friend's like rooftop patio last year, and yeah, I didn't feel bad the next day, right?
Exactly.
So if you're feeling clawed, there are alternatives. Karen, what's going on over there? What do you got in there?
Oh, just hanging out in my floral gown, channeling spring in all ways. Yeah. I love this theme. Thank you, Rick, for being our guest and for coming up with this. It's good to find inspiration, I think, as the weeks go on and doing this segment together. So I love this one. This you can take a lot of different directions in wine, and Rick and I both took it to Italy. I think there's a reason for that, though. Italy, everybody knows a farmer or is a farmer themselves. It's a very agrarian country, and they prize the food that comes from the earth, the grapes that are used to make wine coming from the earth, and you usually don't see one without the other. So in thinking about kind of a gardening spring theme, I decided to feature Vietti, which is a producer that is a feather in the cap here at Classic for sure. They're not just a benchmark Barolo producer. They produce a lot of the indigenous varietals in Piemonte in northern Italy. So just a little kind of southwest from Alto Adige, where Rick's wine was from. And I chose to focus on their new release, which is a grape called Timorasso from a region called Derthona. And we literally just got this a couple weeks ago. And just a little background on Vietti. I mean, if you haven't heard of the name before, you probably will soon. They are super famous for Barolos, of course, founded in 1873 by Mario Vietti. So they're on their 5th generation family winemaking. And I believe in the 2nd generation, Mario's son began buying plots, various parcels, not just what was surrounding their family home, but various parcels throughout the valley based on what were the best sites and what were the best vineyards for each particular grape. And that was kind of breaking the code at the time, but it means that they now have the most sites of Grand Cru Barolo in all of Piemonte, which is incredible, which is super cool. Kind of this idea of, you're cooking with all the best ingredients in the kitchen. You're taking a little from this parcel and a little bit from that parcel to make something a little bit greater than the sum of its parts. So to me, that's gardening. The Vietti family, the current generation, which is Luca and Elena Curado Vietti, the 5th generation, they have converted the entire winery to organic. They are certified organic in almost all their plots at this point. And Luca at heart, who manages the vineyards, Luca at heart is a farmer. He's a grower before a winemaker. And so he's always out in these sites. He's really site specific. And the family has legendarily been involved in, resurfacing some of the forgotten varietals of the region. So that's where Timorasso comes into play. Maybe you have heard of it before, maybe not. It is native. It is one of the oldest varietals in Piemonte and comes from the region of Colli Tortonesi. So a little bit further east in Piemonte, kind of like en route to Lombardia, if you will. The region is called Derthona, so you'll see it kind of says that on the bottom of the bottle there. And this is originally where Timorasso was from, but when this region was hit by phylloxera in the late 1800s, it was totally decimated. Timorasso is a little bit tougher to grow than some of the other varietals of this region, Barbera, Dolcetto, Nebbiolo, Arneus, et cetera, Moscato. And so once phylloxera swept through and decimated quite a bit of the vineyards. They, a lot of people moved to the cities in search of work, and others started growing more like easier to grow grapes, some other kind of cash crops, some cereals, something that would fetch more of an immediate profit than grapes at that time. So it was all but lost, and currently today only 20 producers are working with it, which is kind of fun. It feels kind of unique to be drinking something that, you know, was almost endangered at some point. But the aromas and the flavors very much remind me of spring as well. This is a very floral wine, almost a little honeyed, kind of has a little bit of an almond skin, bitter character to tie it all together and make it a little bit food friendly. And then there's just this beautiful acidity throughout that would make it wonderful for aging. Just a super unique wine. It is their first vintage, even though they've been tinkering with it for a few years now, kind of working with other producers, coming up with what they wanted to do. It is 10 months on lees with batonnage about once a month in a mixture of cement, oak, and a little bit of stainless steel, about a third, and a third. So something really special here, and I was excited to tell you about it. And the label is also very springy, very colorful, beautiful, kind of features some of those citrus notes that you get out of the bottle. So chin chin. Cheers.
Cheers.
Two iconic Italian producers from the north, one from the east, one from the west.
Yep.
Both.
Three. We got Jacapo in here too. We got Homeboy.
Yeah. Well,
And
these are
Bassano. Yeah. Wow. It was meant to be.
Both the wines are from Daltera, which we didn't plan.
That's true.
We didn't at all. I swear.
Yeah, we didn't plan that.
And Poli is not, which we also didn't plan.
Exactly. Anyway, great to be on, guys. Thanks for having me. A lot of fun.
Cheers, y'all. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To spring and to our gardens, you know.
Yeah, let's hope we get.
May we have less and less time to tend them as the months go on.
Yeah. Go for a bountiful harvest, right?
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, guys. It's great to see you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
tuning in.
Cheers.